In the mist-covered valley of Shalimar, just miles from the glacial line where India meets Pakistan, there's a village that wakes not to birdsong, but to boots. Vendors lay out empty stalls under the barrel of rifles. An old man, once a poet, now tends to a locked shrine where no one prays.
Reported from across the valley, life is slowly returning to normal.
It's Friday.
But he still lights incense. Here, weddings are held in whispers, and kites are banned from the sky, not because of weather, but surveillance drones. It's a place suspended in ritual and fear. Sacred, yet silenced. This is Kashmir, not the postcard paradise, but the forgotten breath of it. And this story begins where most voices fade. Number 1. History and geography of Kashmir. Before we dive deeper, let's take a step back. Because to truly understand what life is like in Kashmir today, we first need to understand how it got here. This isn't just a conflict over land. It's a story written across generations' borders and broken promises. Tucked between towering mountains and tangled borders, Kashmir is one of the most beautiful places on Earth, yet also one of the most contested. It sits like a gemstone caught in a vice squeezed between 3 nuclear powers: India to the south, Pakistan to the west, and China just beyond the icy passes. But make no mistake, this isn't just about geography. Kashmir holds enormous strategic value. Its snow-fed rivers supply fresh water to millions, and its position is a military dream, or nightmare, depending on where you stand. The story goes back to 1947, when the British Empire finally loosened its grip on the Indian subcontinent. 2 nations were born, India and Pakistan. But the fate of Kashmir, then a princely state under Maharaja Hari Singh, wasn't so clear. The Maharaja hesitated, trying to remain independent. That didn't last. When armed militias from Pakistan's tribal areas invaded, the Maharaja turned to India for help. He signed an agreement called the Instrument of Accession, and Indian troops were airlifted in. That moment lit the first fuse.
And the situation is returning back slowly to the normal.
By the time the United Nations stepped in, the region was already divided. India controlled most of the territory, Pakistan took the rest, and a fragile ceasefire line was drawn. It still stands today, known as the Line of Control. But the guns didn't fall silent for long. India and Pakistan went to war again in 1965, and again in 1971. In 1999, just months after both nations tested nuclear weapons, soldiers clashed in the Kargil Mountains, high above sea level, in one of the most dangerous standoffs the world has ever seen. Each time, more lives were lost, and trust grew thinner. Fast forward to today, and the tension has taken a new shape. In April 2025, an explosion rocked the valley town of Pahalgam. 26 civilians were killed, including tourists. India blamed the attack on cross-border militants allegedly supported by Pakistani intelligence. Islamabad denied it. What followed was a tit-for-tat escalation. India launched air raids under what they called Operation Sindoor, claiming to destroy militant training camps across the border. In response, Pakistan initiated Operation Bunyan al-Marsus, firing artillery and deploying drones in retaliation. No one declared war, but the air buzzed with it. What's often lost in headlines is the daily human cost. The locals, farmers, shopkeepers, school teachers live in constant uncertainty. Border villages have been evacuated. Roads to hospitals are blocked by checkpoints. Phone networks go dark for days. Livelihoods vanish overnight, not because of a bad harvest, but because the army said don't step outside today. As of March 2025, the region remains one of the most heavily militarized zones in the world. According to the South Asia Peace Observatory, there are over 700,000 Indian troops stationed in the area, not including paramilitary forces. Pakistan, too, maintains a strong presence across the line of control. The sky here isn't just watched by birds, it's patrolled by drones. International pressure continues to build. The United Nations has issued multiple statements calling for restraint, urging both sides to return to the negotiating table. But hope is fragile. Locals joke bitterly that peace talks come and go like the seasons. Only the snow is more predictable. And so Kashmir waits. It waits behind barbed wire and under curfew in bunkers and in prayers. For some, it's still a paradise lost. For others, it's just home broken, but theirs. Because when borders turn into battlegrounds, it's the people who live in between that carry the weight. And in Kashmir, they've been carrying it for more than 70 years. Number 2. Daily life under military control. Before the sun fully rises over the valley, something else does first orders, curfews, and checkpoints. Permission to step outside, permission to cross a street, permission to exist under watch. Across towns and villages, military checkpoints interrupt every mile like full stops in a sentence that's never allowed to finish. At each one, soldiers check IDs, ask questions, sometimes detain. People learn to move with caution, to carry documents like armor. And just when things feel somewhat normal, a sudden curfew descends. No warnings, no reasons. A loudspeaker blares and everything freezes. Shops close, buses stop, even weddings are postponed. This isn't a one-time disruption. It happens so often that people have stopped asking why. In 2024 alone, the region experienced more than 130 days of either full or partial curfews, nearly 1/3 of the year. It's like time keeps skipping beats, and no one knows when it will play straight again. But control doesn't stop at the streets. It reaches into the airwaves, too. Internet blackouts are frequent sometimes, lasting for days, sometimes weeks. And when the internet goes dark, so does access to education, banking, healthcare, and even loved ones. Students preparing for exams lose touch with their teachers. Farmers can't check weather updates. Shopkeepers can't run digital payments. For many small businesses, these shutdowns are not just inconvenient, they're devastating. According to a joint report by the Internet Freedom Foundation and South Asia Tech Forum, Kashmir lost an estimated $600 million in digital economic activity over the last 3 years due to repeated internet suspensions. That's more than just numbers, that's families pushed into poverty because a switch was flipped. And then there's the silence you can't measure, the kind that sits in your chest. Living in a place where soldiers outnumber civilians makes fear a daily companion. It's the fear of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, of saying something that might be misunderstood, of losing contact with your family when networks go down. This constant tension affects more than just the body, it wears down the mind. Local health professionals have noted a sharp rise in anxiety disorders, sleep problems, and symptoms of post-traumatic stress, especially among young adults. In a 2025 report from Médecins Sans Frontières, nearly half of the population surveyed in certain districts reported feelings of chronic distress. And yet somehow people adapt. They find ways to continue life inside these narrow, invisible borders. Children sketch peace signs in their notebooks. Elders gather quietly for tea. And artists paint murals of mountains that no longer feel free. Resilience here is not a slogan. It's survival. So when we talk about Kashmir, it's easy to get lost in maps, treaties, and big headlines. But the real story is written in the pauses, in the moments where life gets interrupted again and again. Where going outside is a risk, where speaking up is a gamble, and where just staying connected to the world becomes an act of courage. And that's what life under military presence looks like, not in theory, but in every breath, every silence, every locked gate. Number 3. Impact on education and healthcare. In Kashmir, the sound of a school bell has become something rare. These days, the only certainty students have is uncertainty itself. Across the valley, classrooms sit empty, not because of holidays or summer break, but because of fear. Whenever tensions rise near the border, schools are shut down. Sometimes for a day, sometimes for weeks. And every time it happens, thousands of young minds are pushed further away from a future they're trying so hard to reach. In early May of the year 2025, several districts in northern Kashmir, including Baramulla and Kupwara, ordered immediate school closures due to heightened military activity. Parents kept their children at home, not knowing if it was safer to stay indoors or to try to keep up with learning online. But even that comes with its own struggle. Internet shutdowns are still a frequent reality here. So while the rest of the world debates artificial intelligence in classrooms, many Kashmiri students are just hoping their Wi-Fi will work long enough to submit homework. The numbers tell a sobering story. In the past 3 years alone, more than 400 school days have been disrupted by curfews, communication bans, or direct threats to safety. That's more than a full academic year lost. And in a place where education has always been seen as a path out of hardship, these lost days hit even harder. But the challenges don't end when the school gates are locked. For those who fall sick or worse, getting medical help is another uphill battle. During curfews, ambulances are often stopped at checkpoints. Patients are questioned. Some are turned away. And in remote villages, people are forced to travel miles on foot, sometimes carrying loved ones on makeshift stretchers, just to reach a clinic. Imagine a mother going into labor during a nighttime lockdown with no way to reach a hospital, or an elderly man with chest pain waiting for hours because no vehicle is allowed on the road. These aren't rare cases. They're daily risks that come with living in a conflict zone. Even for those who do manage to get treatment, the system is strained. Hospitals run low on supplies. Doctors are overworked. Some facilities are understaffed because medical professionals choose to leave the valley in search of safer, more stable environments. And then there's the pain that doesn't show up on X-rays. The silent weight carried in the mind. Mental health in Kashmir is a growing crisis, but one that's rarely discussed out loud. Studies from 2025 show that nearly half of adults in the valley report symptoms of anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress. Think about that. Almost every second person you pass on the street is dealing with some level of psychological trauma. And yet the number of qualified mental health professionals in the region is shockingly low. For every 100,000 people, there are fewer than 2 licensed psychologists available. That's not a gap. That's a chasm. Part of the problem is stigma. In many parts of South Asia, mental illness is still a taboo subject, often dismissed as weakness or spiritual punishment. But another part is access. Therapy costs money. Medications cost more. And when your family is already struggling to buy food or pay school fees, emotional well-being becomes a luxury you can't afford. Still, people find ways to cope. Support networks emerge through neighbors, local religious leaders, or even quiet conversations shared over a cup of tea. In the face of so much instability, community becomes the medicine many rely on. It's easy to overlook these human stories when we talk about conflict. Maps and headlines rarely capture the frustration of a teenager who's missed another exam, or the quiet panic of a father trying to get his child to a doctor at midnight. But these are the stories that define daily life in Kashmir, not just the bullets or the borders, but the long wait for things to get better. And as long as schools remain shuttered and hospitals remain out of reach, that wait continues. Quietly, painfully, and every day a little longer. Number 4. Economic crisis and livelihood struggles. Economies usually crumble under bad policy or poor planning. But in this part of the world, it's fear that shuts down markets. One blast, one warning, one missed signal, suddenly fields are empty and stores are shuttered. For decades, 2 industries have formed the backbone of this region's livelihood: agriculture and tourism. But in recent years, both have been hanging by a thread. Tourism was once a source of pride and income. Travelers from across the world would come to see the snow-covered slopes of Gulmarg, the floating gardens of Dal Lake, or the saffron fields that bloomed like gold every autumn. In the year 2024, Kashmir welcomed more than 3.5 million visitors. Hotels were full, houseboats lit up the lakes at night, and artisans sold their hand-woven carpets, and intricate walnut wood carvings to eager tourists. But all it takes is a single incident to change everything. In April of 2025, a tragic attack in Pahalgam claimed the lives of 26 civilians, including foreign tourists. The fallout was immediate. Flights were canceled. Bookings were wiped out overnight. Within just 2 weeks, the region saw an estimated 45% drop in tourist footfall. Local guides, hotel workers, taxi drivers, many of whom rely entirely on seasonal income, were suddenly left with nothing. Empty rooms, empty pockets, empty hopes. And if tourism is seasonal, agriculture is supposed to be year-round. But even the rhythm of the land has been thrown off balance. Kashmir's fertile valleys once produced some of the finest apples, almonds, and saffron in all of South Asia. Farmers would wake before dawn, tend to orchards, and load their produce onto trucks headed for markets across India. Today, that journey is no longer guaranteed. Curfews can stop a truck for hours. Security lockdowns can delay harvests until it's too late. And when conflict spikes, even the most basic logistics like fuel for tractors or fertilizer delivery can be blocked. The result, crops rot before they can be sold. Milk sours before it reaches a shop. And the income that once kept rural families afloat dries up before the season even ends. For many farmers, the only certainty is debt. According to figures released in early 2025, agricultural output in Jammu and Kashmir dropped by nearly 20% over the past 2 years, primarily due to transportation disruptions and labor shortages linked to insecurity. All of this feeds into an even deeper issue: unemployment. As of February 2025, more than 370,000 educated young people in Jammu and Kashmir are officially registered as unemployed. The youth unemployment rate here is over 32%, more than double the national average. That's not just a number, it's a generation caught in limbo. College graduates are driving rickshaws, skilled workers are staying home, and dreams of stable jobs are replaced by anxiety and resignation. When opportunities disappear, so do the people. Migration is now becoming a quiet exodus. Young professionals' families, even small business owners, are choosing to leave their ancestral homes in search of stability elsewhere. Delhi, Mumbai, even abroad. They're not just chasing better jobs, they're chasing peace of mind. But every person who leaves takes something with them: skills, culture, community. What remains is a vacuum that's hard to refill, and yet somehow life goes on. People adapt. Families cut expenses. Communities share what little they have. Resilience is not just a word here, it's a lifestyle. But resilience doesn't pay the bills, and it shouldn't be the only thing people are expected to rely on. So when we speak about the Kashmir conflict, we must also speak about the unseen casualties, the markets that never open, the orchards that never get picked, the businesses that never recover. Because long after the headlines fade and the border tensions cool down, the economic wounds stay open. Quiet, invisible, and far from healing. Number 5. Eroding culture and identity. What happens when a community stops celebrating? When songs are no longer sung and stories no longer passed down? In Kashmir, culture has always been more than tradition. It's how people remember who they are. From music echoing in mountain valleys to centuries-old shrines nestled in snow, identity here is stitched together by rituals, festivals, and sacred spaces. But in recent years, those threads are unraveling, and not because people have forgotten, but because they're being forced to let go. Take the festivals, for example. Just a decade ago, spring in Kashmir meant open fields filled with blooming tulips, music, and children dancing in traditional attire. The annual Tulip Festival used to welcome thousands of visitors from across India and beyond. But in April of the year 2025, the event was called off again. Officials cited security concerns. The same fate met the Amarnath Yatra pilgrimage, which once brought together hundreds of thousands of Hindu devotees. These weren't just events, they were anchors, moments when communities could come together regardless of background and remember what unites them. When those moments vanish, something else quietly disappears too, a sense of belonging. And it's not just about public gatherings. Many cultural and religious sites, some standing for centuries, are now crumbling. In the past 3 years, repeated shelling and cross-border violence have caused damage to more than 30 historical structures across Kashmir. Among them, the Bilal Mosque in Muzaffarabad, a landmark from the 15th century, was partially destroyed during a nighttime barrage. Walls cracked, roofs collapsed. And with every stone that falls, a chapter of history is lost. But perhaps the most painful losses are the invisible ones. The ones happening slowly, quietly, generation by generation. As tensions continue and everyday life remains uncertain, cultural education takes a back seat. Schools that once taught poetry from Kashmiri saints or celebrated regional dance now focus only on the basics if they're open at all. And with internet blackouts and media restrictions, even online access to cultural content becomes unreliable. According to a study released by the Indian Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage in March of 2025, nearly 98% of Kashmiri youth between the ages of 12 and 20 said they had never visited a cultural museum or heritage site in their region. Most couldn't name more than one traditional folk song. It's not that they don't care, it's that they've never been given the chance. This disconnection runs deep. When young people can't access their history, they start to feel like they don't belong to it. And when that happens, it's not just stories or songs that are lost, it's identity. Identity that's been shaped by generations who tilled this land, built temples and mosques on its hillsides, and carved stories into its stones. What makes it even harder is that efforts to protect what's left often run into walls, literal and political. Restoration projects are delayed due to conflict. Funding gets redirected toward security. And in a region where almost every cultural initiative needs approval, many never get past the idea phase. It's not neglect, it's paralysis. Voices from the people. In the heart of Kashmir, amidst the snow-capped peaks and serene valleys, the echoes of conflict have become a constant backdrop to daily life. Yet beyond the headlines and political rhetoric, it's the voices of the local people that tell the true story of resilience and hope. Take Amina, a schoolteacher from Srinagar. Each morning she navigates military checkpoints to reach her classroom, determined to provide her students with a semblance of normalcy. Education is our weapon against despair, she says. Even when the world around us is uncertain, knowledge gives us strength. Hi. Then there's Rahim, a young entrepreneur in Baramulla who dreams of expanding his small handicraft business. The recent escalation in tensions has disrupted supply chains and deterred tourists, but Rahim remains optimistic. Our art is a reflection of our culture, he shares. By preserving it, we keep our identity alive. These individual stories are threads in the larger tapestry of Kashmiri society, a community striving for peace and stability. The desire for a life free from fear is universal. Families yearn for safe neighborhoods, children wish for uninterrupted schooling, and elders hope to pass down traditions without the shadow of conflict looming overhead. The recent surge in hostilities between India and Pakistan has only intensified these aspirations. The April 22nd attack in Pahalgam, which tragically claimed the lives of 26 tourists, has been a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the region. In its aftermath, both nations have engaged in retaliatory strikes, leading to civilian casualties and widespread displacement. The human cost is immeasurable, and the psychological toll on the local population is profound. International leaders have called for restraint and dialogue. The United States, United Kingdom, G7 nations, Saudi Arabia, and China have all emphasized the urgent need for de-escalation and mediation. However, for the people of Kashmir, these diplomatic overtures must translate into tangible actions that prioritize their safety and well-being. Local communities have taken it upon themselves to advocate for peace. Candlelight vigils, interfaith dialogues, and grassroots initiatives have emerged as platforms for expressing solidarity and a collective yearning for harmony. These efforts underscore a fundamental truth: the people of Kashmir are not passive observers, but active participants in shaping their destiny. Yet amidst these endeavors, challenges persist. The militarization of the region, frequent communication blackouts, and economic instability continue to hinder progress. The youth in particular face a precarious future with limited opportunities and a pervasive sense of uncertainty. Despite these obstacles, the spirit of Kashmir endures. It's found in the melodies of traditional songs, the intricate patterns of local crafts, and the unwavering hospitality extended to visitors. It's a testament to a community that, even in the face of adversity, chooses hope over despair. As the world watches the unfolding events in Kashmir, it's imperative to center the narratives of its people. Their stories are not just accounts of suffering, but also of resilience, courage, and an unyielding desire for peace. By amplifying these voices, we not only honor their experiences, but also pave the way for a future where the valleys of Kashmir resonate with harmony rather than conflict. What we've seen in Kashmir is more than just a region caught in conflict. It's a community full of resilience, culture, and quiet strength. From disrupted classrooms and shuttered markets to fading traditions and unheard voices, each layer of daily life here carries the weight of history and the longing for peace. But amidst it all, there's hope. In every story shared, every craft preserved, every quiet act of courage, we find people who haven't given up. And maybe that's the part of Kashmir we need to remember most. If this video moved you, take a moment to learn more. Share it with someone. Support a humanitarian cause making a difference on the ground. Every small action adds up. And if you'd like to see more stories like this real human and unfiltered feel, free to like this video, subscribe to NVL Travel Documentary, or drop a comment below. Your voice matters, because the road to peace doesn't start in a government office. It starts with understanding, and it starts with us.